Narayanam namaskritam naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasatim vyasam tato jayodhirayat nishtapreshu bhadresu nityam bhagavata sevya bhagavati uttama shoki bhaktir bhavati naistiki nigama kapurjura garidham sharam mukharabhyadavi samitam pibata bhagatam rasamaryam mohora hora sikabhuvi babakaham Amapiyadabhishuddha vishuddham vibhu samapyadena vidam viduksharam prakyahi dhormodhanam sankleshanavanamusanti nanyataham Anartha Bashamam Shakshad Bhakti Yogam Lokishajanam Chakra Satpada Samiram Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Dev Maheshwara Guru Shaksha Bharamadam Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Durgame Pati Mayanda Shash Kalapate Shakirvaya Sananda Shantu Shantu Badam Badam Mukam Gavid Bakarayan Shabadashani Pangogi Ganadeka Karigani Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Pistaya Bhutare Shrimati Bhakti Padanta Shami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Praskita Desatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome to Transcendental Tuesday by Bobby. Nice emojis by Bobby the artist. Another artist right behind by Bobby in the comments stream here in Facebook is Manasaganga. And Brent gives us a hearty Haribo. And Govinda Dev sent me a little video this morning of a talented parrot. Jean, good morning. And Rob, good morning on Zoom. We had a tour group last night from Utah Valley University. The Dr. Jorgensen, very interesting fellow. He's military chaplain for many years, taught formerly at BYU. He's a colleague of Alonzo Gaskell. He's now at UVU. Said he's been to the temple many times. I hadn't had the privilege of meeting him before, but we certainly made a nice connection last night. He brought a number of students as well as family members. They had dinner. He particularly liked the pasta. We had spaghetti with olive oil and mixed in with our own garden-grown zucchinis and green peppers and everything. He said he's a pasta aficionado. He's eaten pasta all over the world. And he actually said that I believe the pasta I ate last night was the best I've ever eaten. Too bad Raleigh's not on the stream here. Or maybe by Bobby cooked it. I don't know whether it was by Raleigh or by Bobby. I know it wasn't me. And there was lasagna and all kinds of quesadillas made by Amaris. They had a nice dinner. They really relished the dinner. Then we went upstairs while everyone attended Arti, and we just sat down and we had a Q&A session. I said, what do you want to know about? You want to know about monotheism, polytheism, you want to know what our connection to Hinduism, you want to know about karma, reincarnation, life on other planets. And it's interesting because the last 3 times I've opened a Q&A session with school groups, they've all picked up on life on other planets, which is kind of interesting. Seems to be a subject matter which fascinates a lot of people. I start out by quoting the verse from the 2nd chapter of Nanam Chindanti Sastanim Nanam Dadati Chaivam Nasasayana. Krishna says that the nature of the soul or life is it can't be cut by any weapon, burned by fire, withered by the wind, or drowned by water. If that's true, then life can and does not only exist on some other planets, but life would exist on each and every planet. What are the planets? Just different combinations of earth, air, fire, water, and ether. For the sun, for instance, is a lot hotter than here. The moon has less oxygen, more ether. Oh, we don't have to go to other planets. Just imagine Utah Lake. Just imagine any body of water. I can't live in Utah Lake in this body, but that doesn't mean there's no life in Utah Lake. There's all kinds of life in Utah Lake. just has a body that's more suited to water. Generally, aquatics have gills, and gills can take in water and extract to oxygen to breathe from that. I can't do that in this body, but life can exist in water. Life can exist in a more fiery atmosphere. Life can exist in an atmosphere with more ether and less oxygen. And so life can and does exist on every planet. And people may say, well, how come if we go to the moon, we don't see it? I go, well, that's a more subtle environment. It's a more subtle environment. You're not necessarily going to see with these earthbound eyes the great civilizations, cities, and population of other planets. Anyway, I just thought it's interesting that this seems to be the one of all the things I throw out. This seems to be the one that's picked up upon right away. And we're not UFO nuts, or, you know, we're pretty mainline in most areas, pretty conservative. But you know, when you start out with that axiom that soul cannot be cut, it cannot be burned, it cannot be drowned, it cannot be dried, then you have to come to the inevitable conclusion that we're not the only planet with life, which is kind of naive, to say the least. I want to go back to something we were talking about yesterday, if you don't mind. I narrated how I'd been to Los Angeles for a funeral of my dear friend, memorial service, really. He'd already been cremated, Manny Ailawadi. I was a house guest in the home of Manny's widow, Nisha. And along with me, there was another couple, Amarjeet, and I believe her name was Kamal. They were good friends of the Ailawadis, and they had come down from Northern California, and they were co-guests along with me. And we were all sitting around the breakfast table the morning after the memorial service. And as I explained yesterday, I'll make it shorter version today. Amarjeet said that when he got back to Northern California, he was thinking of starting out a Gita study group. And I said, well, that's great. I'll give you my blessings. And Nisha said, true, you should, you know, jump on it, you know, help them get started, go on a Zoom call. And I said, yeah, I'd be glad to do that. And then Amarjeet went on to say that the first thing they wanted to discuss was whether Krishna actually existed and whether all the things described in the Mahabharata actually happened. Or the second line, that was the first line. The second line, if they did, by their grace and mercy, decide that these incidents happened, the next question they were going to address is, were they just small, insignificant instances that achieved legendary status through time? In other words, did Vyasadeva, the author and compiler of the Mahabharata, the Vedic literatures, exaggerate what were once pretty ordinary, mundane events? And I'm thinking, all of a sudden, if you could see a mind backpedal at hyper speed, that would have been me. I'm thinking, whoa, wait a minute. I am not going to join on this Zoom call and prove to these skeptics the validity and the integrity of Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, Asita, Devala, Ambarish, Prahlad Maharaj, Kumaras. No way. I am not going to get in that position. That would taint me. And I remember hearing something about, I think, quantum physics. Correct me if I'm wrong. They found out that you cannot observe something objectively. And when the more minute the phenomenon it is which you are observing, such as waves and particles, the fact of your observing enters into the equation. You can't just look at something and it just goes on without any reference to the observer. The observer is part of what happens once the observer brings his attention on something. That attention, that energy itself can alter the pattern of activity of that which is observed. You hear me? You heard something similar? So the mindset with which you bring to your Bhagavad Gita study group is all important. The skepticism, the cynicism, the doubt. Naham prakasha sarvasva. Krishna anticipates this. He anticipates that people will come to the subject matter of the Bhagavad Gita with condensation, with a superior attitude, with an agenda to minimize the words and the character of Krishna and Vyasadeva, with an attitude of picking and choosing what they like, what suits them, what salves their ego, and leaving aside the rest. And all of this presupposes that you're not going to get anything out of the Gita. The consciousness which you bring to the study of the Gita as an observer is going to affect the truths that you extract from the Gita. And with such skepticism and such doubt, I'm skeptical that it's even worth your time to approach the Gita or to touch the Gita. You have to approach the Gita according to the prescription of Krishna. Krishna includes within the Gita the attitude that one should have when discussing the Gita. Tad vidi prani pratena paripashnena sevadupshantiyanam. One should try to learn the truth, and the Bhagavad Gita purports, the Bhagavad Gita describes itself as being the highest level of knowledge about the absolute truth. Aham sarvasya prabhava mata sarvam prabhava. Krishna says, I am the highest truth. There is no truth higher than me. Iti mat vibhajantimam Buddha bhava samamnitam. And knowing this, all great sages, saints, scientists, and philosophers throughout millions of years of Christian history have styled themselves as my devotee and joined the disciplic succession, joined the pantheon of my devotees throughout the ages. One after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. Ahushtam Rishya Sare. Arjuna says to Krishna in this 10th chapter, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitam Purusham Sasatam Dim Adi Deva Jambhayum. Krishna, you are the supreme spirit. You are the supreme abode, rest, shelter. You're the loving Father. You're the creator of all living beings. You only want to do good to them. You only want to deliver them from this ocean of birth, death, disease, and old age, this ocean of sorrows, and bring them back to the shelter of your lotus feet, where life is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. You work towards that end, and your devotees throughout the ages have partnered with you to the end of ending misery amongst the residents of this material world. There's no agenda, there's no motivation here other than paternal love and fraternal love. Paternal love on the part of the Lord, who is our Father, Aham Bija Pradapita. He claims paternity over all living beings, wherever there's life, on whatever planet, in whatever species there are. Krishna claims paternity. That means love, concern, and protection, should we be willing to accept it. And the great saints proclaim fraternity, that they acknowledge all of God's children as their brothers and sisters. So the Father works to deliver his offspring. The saints and sages work on behalf of the Father as emissaries and representatives of the Father with a fraternal love for all the living beings. Kashtam tu anadita purichinam, ritam pashamasatamparam, pasham janam, pashisham baitaranyam, shakamajam sha, apajashararam. Question is asked in the 7th canto. seeing that God created all living beings and they are all divine in terms of their origins. They're all capable of the greatest good, the greatest purity, the greatest worship, the greatest level of saintliness. Every one of them, every living being is capable of that, is created with that inbuilt by the grace of God. And seeing them, instead of stepping into the middle of their destiny and rising to the calling of the Lord, they are neglecting the Lord, foolishly and trivially engaged in all kinds of self-interested temporary material pursuits, and they end up in the river Vaitaranya. The river Vaitaranya is the river that you cross over from one birth to another, and it's not a good place. There's a boat which you can use to cross the river, but the boat is overcrowded like the boats and buses of India. There's not enough room on the boat for the people. So many of the people are pushed out of the boat or never get into the boat in the first place. And yet they have to cross this Vaitaranya river. And it's full of wailing, full of suffering, full of moaning. All the souls are shot full of regret that once again, I got the human form of life and I wasted it without Krishna consciousness. It's explained in the Bhagavatam that when you find yourself packed up in the womb with your back arched like a bow, extremely uncomfortable, hot, with rashes and being bitten by the little parasites and bugs inside the womb of the mother and being affected by the spicy food that the mother eats, or if she drinks alcohol, all this affects the child within the womb. You wake up, and no sooner do you wake up than the misery, the suffering overwhelms you, and you lose consciousness again. And after some time, you wake up and again lose consciousness, because the stress and the suffering and the misery and the inconvenience is so great that you cannot stay on the surface of consciousness. No sooner do you wake up than it pushes you down. So after not much time in the womb, the living being says, oh, I blew it the last life. I'm not going to blow it again. This is going to be the last time I allow myself to be pushed into these circumstances. When I see the light of day, the next time I am going to knuckle down and perform devotional service, make this my last birth and go back to home, back to God. That resolution occurs, gels within the womb. And yet no sooner does one take the light of birth than one is coddled over, one is fawned over by relatives, aunts, uncles, one is chucked under the chin, baby talk, and things are thrust into your mouth. There's the warm, rich milk of the mother. And one forgets that promise that one made to oneself within the womb. One starts to cave. There begin to be cracks in one's resolution. And one begins to think, this isn't so bad after all. What was I so worked up about in the womb? I can do this. I can do this. The satisfaction which has eluded me for who knows how many births. Yeah, I'm gonna try once more. I'm gonna give it one more shot. So in the river Vaitaranya, there are countless living beings, overcrowded in the boat, teeming, spilling over into the rivers of forgetfulness, the river of suffering, the river of rebirth, death, disease, and old age. It's not a happy, congenial place. The question is asked, who, seeing or being aware of the suffering of souls who have left their previous bodies just recently and are in that transitional phase, crossing the river of Vaitaranya, ready to go to the abode of the Lord of Death, Yamraj, to be punished for their sins of their previous life, and then to be thrust into another body for another round of birth, death, disease, and old age. The regrets, the wailing, the recriminations, the bitterness is overwhelming. The hue and cry breaks your heart. And so who being aware of this or seeing this, can stand by indifferently or dispassionately while others are suffering. Doesn't matter how liberated you are, doesn't matter how free from material sense gratification you are, you cannot stand by indifferently and dispassionately while your brothers and sisters are suffering. And that's why the Lord and the great devotees who are described, whose stories are told in the Srimad Bhagavatam, inevitably get together and partner for the purpose of delivering the fallen conditioned souls. And frankly, we don't have time. If I could be so bold as to count myself among those missionaries, those who attempt to save their fellow living beings, we're not gonna sit still during your Bhagavad Gita study group and prove to you that Krishna exists and prove to you that Veda Vyas did not exaggerate in terms of his literary endeavors. I'm sorry, life is too short. Krishna's assignment for us is too important to waste time. And you shouldn't waste our time either. When Krishna says, Tadvidi pranipanana pariprishnantadevi, there are two elements. Well, several. First of all, you identify one who knows the truth. Now, you can know the truth by associating yourself with another spiritual master. I may not be fully realized in terms of the absolute truth, but if I hear from disciplic succession, then my knowledge is perfect. There might be a piece of metal in front of me that amplifies my sound when I speak to a audience, and I may not know all the technology that's involved. I may not even know initially what it's called. But if I hear from a sound man, this is a microphone, this amplifies your voice, and I repeat that and I put it into practice, then my knowledge is perfect. Doesn't matter if I'm a sound man, if I have in my background all the technology that makes it work. I don't need that. I just need to repeat what I've heard from an authorized sound man. This is a microphone. Then my knowledge is perfect. Well, similarly, one who has seen the truth is one who has heard in the line of disciplic succession, originating with God, Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, and coming down through the ages. Okay. When you find such a person who is connected to the Lord through the fraternity of great saints and sages, coming down through thousands and thousands of years, then you need to approach that person and take advantage of the knowledge which is being passed down untouched, undamaged throughout all the vast millennium after millennium after millennium. And then you need to do two things. You need to inquire from that person and then render service. That means the inquiries should be purposeful. You should be prepared to accept what you hear because it is coming directly from the Lord through the chain of disciplic succession. You may have doubts, you may have unresolved questions, you may have inquiries to which you need answers, and that's perfectly valid. That's a sign of a healthy, probing intellect. But you should not approach such an authorized representative with skepticism, with cynicism, with condescension. You are not doing them a favor. They are doing you the greatest favor of potentially delivering you from birth, death, disease, and old age. So what you don't want to do, as if you are already in enough darkness, as if you are already not removed enough from the Lord, if you waste their time, ask them question after question after question after question, with no intention of following up and making a commitment, then your situation is even worse than it was before. So you should make serious inquiries and accept the answers and then commit and act on them. Just like in the college, even in a mundane sense, you go to the class, you give up. There's so many other things you could be doing during that hour of mathematics class, but you chose to go to that class. There are any number of people with whom you could spend that hour, but you're going to that class. Not only you're going to that class, but you're paying a healthy tuition. You've probably left home in order to incur extra expenses of a dormitory and cafeteria food, books, tuition, all to the purpose of sitting and listening to someone talk. Why? This person is not an ordinary person. They're not an untrained man or woman on a street corner. They have trained very concentratedly and under the tutelage of other mathematicians so that they are authorized. They can bring you an experience that you not get anywhere else. But you have to pay the tuition. You have to most likely move away from home in order to take advantage of it. It's not free. It's not something you find on any street corner. There's a price. There's a price. And having landed yourself in that classroom, you need to take full advantage of it. And you need to commit to it during the time that you're there. Then you will be the recipient of the mathematical knowledge which has been passed down to your teacher. If you waste the teacher's time with frivolous questions, if you don't take note, if you don't learn what comes from his mouth, then why did you take all the time of coming there, paying the tuition and living there? Similarly, why would you approach a representative of the Disciplic session, a representative of Vyasadeva, and waste their time with trivial questions? It's a sign of intelligence. It's a healthy sign that one has questions, that one has inquiries, that one is confused in certain areas. And it's also to your good fortune that you have found someone who carries the weight and the knowledge of the disciplic succession. Now you need to listen to them and as quickly as possible, remove your doubts, get your questions answered to your satisfaction, and then make a commitment. Render service. Tad, Prani, Pratena, Pradik, Jena, Seva. This is the prescription. This is how you approach the Bhagavad Gita. With two open ears, with a receptive heart, with respect for the great authorities who carry the weight of the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and with every intention of joining them, joining in that exalted fraternity of saints and moving with them back to home, back to God. And it is in that association that you're going to assume authority, you're going to assume power, you're going to put a smile on the face of the Lord. On that same trip to Los Angeles, I stayed with my great friend Roshan in Cerritos. He's initiated by Navayovanam Swami as Ram Kishan. Now, he had a good friend named Dr. Nanda, who comes from Apple Valley. He's a physician. He's built, along with a consortium of physicians, a beautiful Krishna temple in Apple Valley, which is just north of Los Angeles, to the east of Lancaster and Palmdale. Beautiful Krishna temple, millions of dollars. He's arranged for the worship. After executing his duties as a physician, almost every day he'll go to the temple and he'll give Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita class. He's been doing this for years. And yet he has not been initiated. He has not officially joined the disciplic succession. And Roshan keeps telling him, you know, this is not a culture that you do on your own. You don't preach as an individual. You don't remain distant or aloof from the disciplic succession. You want to become part of the disciplic succession so that then you will have coming through you the full power and current of the Godhead. And so Roshan told his friend, look, you've done many nice things. You've built a temple. You've arranged for the worship of Krishna. You've had Rath Yatras. You've had festivals. You give class almost every day. Now you need to put the final pin in place and get initiated. So otherwise, you know, at a certain point, this can actually become a disturbance. Shruti, Smriti, Paranadi, Panchadika, Aikantiki, Rupati, Abhikalpate. You can only remain apart and aloof for so long before people see the schism. Prabhupada used to say, Guru is one. Guru is not many. Guru is one. If you get two people that are speaking differently, at least one of them, or perhaps both of them, are not a guru, because wherever you encounter a bona fide guru, represented by the Disciplic saying, what they're speaking is one. So don't get hung up on, should I take initiation from this guru, this guru, this guru, this guru? That's important. You should feel comfortable. You should feel faith and trust. But what you're getting initiating to, what you're connecting with, is Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, Prahlad Maharaj, the four Kumars, Kapila Dev, on and on and on and on and on. And really, you don't want to stand aloof or apart from that exalted body of devotees for very long. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. We each have a time. We each have a time where there's an optimal opportunity to step in the middle of our destiny, and we should not put it off. Life is short. Our assignment is important, and we need to join the family preachers, family of devotees, and step right into the middle of what Krishna has desired. It's fine to have a period of inquiry, a period of studentship, but the very fact that we only have a few years on this earth before we have to pass on, and we do want to avoid being plunged into the river of Vaitaranya. We don't want to have regrets. If you leave it too long, if you delay too long, if you drag your feet too long, if you loiter and straggle too long, your opportunity will pass you over. Strike while the iron is hot. That's what's said in ancient days. They had blacksmiths, and the blacksmiths had to make weapons. They made so many things, but let's just take the example of weapons. So before you could shape the steel or the iron, you had to give it right hot. You had to give it just at the right temperature. And if it's at the right temperature and glowing hot, it actually becomes soft. And then with your hammer or your mallet, you pound it and you create it into the particular useful cutting shape that you intend. If you don't strike at the right moment, if you wait too long, then you're going to hit that, and either it's not going to shape the iron at all, or it's going to put it into some shape that you didn't want, that you didn't intend, and which is not going to be useful at all. So it's fine. Yes, you meet the devotees. You get yourself some service. You do some good to the temple. Maybe like Dr. Nanda, you build a temple. You manage the worship. You observe festivals. You do class every day. But don't neglect the commitment. That's where you get your power. Strike while the iron is hot. If you let that metal cool past its optimal temperature, then you've missed the chance to make it and mold it. We're Roshan and I, and yes, Dr. Nanda, story has a happy ending. He did get initiating. Navayovana Swami had stayed for couple of weeks in Los Angeles, giving classes every day, and Dr. Nanda was attending, Roshan was attending. And Dr. Nanda had to fly somewhere. And when he would have returned to the LA area, Navayovana would have gone on. He would have missed the chance again. So he was literally getting ready to go to the airport. And finally, it hit him. I have delayed this. I have deferred this long enough. What am I doing? Building a temple for Krishna, giving classes for Krishna, organizing the worship and festivals of Krishna, and I'm not initiated. What kind of a message does that send out to my constituencies? And he had an hour before he had to go to the airport. So he rushed into the apartment in Los Angeles. He and his wife, Hermila, and they got initiated finally. And I said, I'm so happy that after all this time, you stopped delaying, you stopped putting off. You put your trust and your faith, not necessarily in one particular personality, but how can you not trust dozens and dozens, if not hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of great saints and sages who have, out of compassion and empathy for the suffering living beings join together and preach Krishna consciousness throughout the ages. How can anybody of a purified disposition remain aloof or unconcerned about that? We need to jump in with both feet. We need to join. We need all the help we can get in the manner of delivering the Kali Yuga souls from birth, death, disease, and old age, from drive-by shootings, from COVID, from AIDS, from aggressive wars all over the planet. Yes, we need all the help we can get. We cannot do this on our own. We have to take advantage of the power of the Lord as it comes through to us through disciplic succession. So I was just telling Dr. Nanda, you have now you're fully equipped. Now you've got your helmet, you've got your breastplate, you've got your armor, you've got your arrows, you've got your javelin, you've got your bows. You have everything you need now to be a fully authorized, empowered messenger of the Supreme Personality. You're not sending out mixed messages by doing this and this and this and this and this and this, and then maintaining your distance in another way. It's a great opportunity. Evam parampara praptam imam raja sakalina yoga nashta paranchapam. Krishna says to Arjuna, the knowledge that I'm giving to you today, I am giving it to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend. There were many others present, perhaps more intelligent than Arjuna, more detached than Arjuna, more of a sage than Arjuna, more of a yogi than Arjuna, more of a philosopher than Arjuna. And yet Krishna bypassed them all and spoke to Arjuna because Arjuna was his devotee. And devotee means in the disciplic succession, duly initiated, as well as my friend. And Krishna further emphasizes that the knowledge which he's given to Arjuna, he had originally given to the sun god, Vivaswan, millions and millions of years ago. And that knowledge was passed down from Vivaswan to Manu to Akshvakur, and thus it descended throughout the ages through the bona fide chain of the succession. The saintly kings kept it alive, kept it extant, kept it spread all over the surface of the globe, kept it available for every man and woman and child for thousands and thousands of years. And in due course of time, the disciplic succession itself got broken. The message failed to be passed around with integrity and with authorized representatives. And therefore, Krishna said, I have the importance of the disciplic succession is such that when the disciplic succession is broken, the knowledge might be there, but we don't get it from this individual, from this individual, from this individual who's trying to make a name for himself and has their own agenda. We only get it from devotees like Arjuna. Krishna only wants to make it available from devotees of Arjuna. Others may be saying some of the same things, taking advantage of some of the same high points, but Krishna does not favor that. Krishna does not want for people in general to receive the knowledge from individuals, freestanding, apart, aloof individuals. He wants all the devotees to be united. He wants the weight of the total combination of devotees throughout history to come to bear on each and every potential prospective person for liberation. And so therefore, to Arjuna, Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imamrija. This knowledge is properly. You may receive bits and pieces of it. You may receive it from individuals and so on and so forth, but it is properly and fully and concentratedly and powerfully passed down, evam parampara praptam ima, through the chain of disciplic succession. So anyway, when this man said our Gita study group is going to first decide if Krishna existed, and secondly, we're going to decide whether Vyasadeva didn't exaggerate his stories and make things up and use hyperbole, I'm like, pedaling at 90 miles an hour. Man, what did I just commit myself to? I'm going to waste my time over in an academic circle with my cardigan and my pipe discussing whether Krishna existed and whether the stories of the Mahabharata are true. No, I want to contribute what I have to contribute. If they're taking the time, these exalted souls who are not only full with theoretical knowledge, jnana vijnana mashtitam brahma karma shabhavam, they not only have the full theoretical knowledge of the Vedas at their disposal, and not only are they learned and articulate in expressing it, but they are also jnana vijnanam. They have practical realization of this knowledge. Now, none of us should take the words which come from Krishna and his devotees lightly. We should not take those words in a relative sense. This is the absolute truth passed down by the exalted souls, by the realized souls. There's nothing like it. There's nothing comparable to it. After Arjuna declares Krishna, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitam Param, you are the supreme abode, you're the supreme purifier, Paramam Pusham Shitam, you are the supreme personality of Godhead, the source of everything. Then he says, all the great saints and sages have accepted you as such. They all worship you with all your heart. They concur with my conclusion that you are the highest truth. And as a result, they worship you with all of their hearts. And integral to that worship is connecting oneself with the descending line of disciplic succession. When you do that, it's called Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Tivrena Bhakti Yoga, when properly received, is so powerful that it will dissipate the dense darkness of ignorance in this Kali Yuga, because light is always more powerful than darkness. Darkness cannot compete against light. Never in the history of the world has darkness rolled back light. In every instance, light has always rolled back darkness. Darkness, in fact, is defined as the absence of light. When the light of Krishna consciousness is passed down, and it doesn't matter that you weren't born in a Brahmin family, that you weren't born as an intellectual, it doesn't matter what your background is. Kirata, Halinda, Palinda, Bagashar, Bhira, Shambharyakara, Yena, Chapavre, Sujanti, Tajmai, Prabhavishnave, Namaha. The purity and the power of the holy names, fame, form, and pastimes of Krishna as received from the powerhouse through the wiring of the disciplic succession is such that it will more than counteract any disadvantages due to birth, due to family background, due to lack of education, or due to training. Prabhupada came to the Western country and picked up disciples amongst the members of the counterculture. The counterculture was synonymous with illicit sex, intoxication, drugs, marijuana, LSD, heroin. It was synonymous with meat eating. And yet, when Prabhupada brought, with all the weight of the disciplic succession, to the Western countries, the message of the Bhagavad Gita, he picked up those young boys and girls who had been addicted to all kinds of sinful activities, and he made of them Vaishnavas. Sajanti Tajmai Prabhavishnave Namaha. Prabhupada said the government at that time spent millions of dollars on rehab programs for LSD, for heroin, without any success at all. And yet within a few days of chanting, of having received the Maha Mantra from the lips of a pure devotee coming down in disciplic succession, within a few days, these young boys and girls had given up cigarettes, alcohol, LSD, marijuana, sex, drugs, and meat eating. Yanamani Atrabinir Kanad, Yad Pravanad, Yad Sajopi Shavanaka Kutapanas, Tebagan, Kutapanas. Kutamina, it says it doesn't matter what were the shortcomings or the disadvantages of their background, their birth, their education, their family history, what their habits might have been. All of that is compensated for. All of that is counterbalanced by the power of the holy names of the Lord coming down to one through disciplic succession. And we'll talk tomorrow about how this principle acts it out in the lives of such personalities as Lord Brahma, who, because of having connected himself with the Lord through the process of disciplic succession, not only himself created a universe, the universe in which we live, but he also became the topmost representative, our spiritual ancestor, the founder of our particular line of disciplic succession, which is called the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Our time is about up for today. It's 18 minutes past 8. Sorry for holding you a little longer than normal, but appreciate, as always, your jumping on board here. And who do we have? We have Anjali. Don't neglect the commitment. Yes. Strike while the iron is hot. Thank you, Anjali, the queen of comments, always livening up our thread, our comments thread on Facebook. And now we have all kinds of hearts and thumbs up coming. Not sure who they're coming from, but they're wafting upwards. Krishnadas Tatarchand has been with us the last couple of days. We appreciate that. Govinda Dev seemed to have liked the class. Nice adjectives there for the describing the class. Sundari Priya, thank you. Anjali, acquire from that person and render service. Another of Anjali's comments is TikTok, time is too short. A longer comment from Govinda Dev, just my 2 cents, but Charu, no one is better qualified to speak to such skeptics, and you could participate and answer their skeptical questions just the same as you did this morning and yesterday. Even if they're skeptical, they're choosing to learn Gita. I'll take that under consideration. I just don't like to have my back to the wall into a corner trying to prove the existence of Krishna. I'd rather pick for my audience those who will consume less time and not attempt to wear me down and separate me from my own realizations and my own life history and experiences. Brent, thank you, and Haribo, Manasaganga, and again, Vaibhavi. Rob, we'd love to hear not only your takeaways, but anything that you want to tell us freestyle as well.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Wonderful class today.
Yeah.
It just kind of reiterates in my own life that, I need to take this seriously and not just kind of, skirt around the edges, but to, like Anjali said, is commit. Got to commit to it. But as for takeaways, let's see here. Okay. Read the Gita for truth. Don't be a skeptic or aloof.
Nice. That's beautiful. Hit the nail on the head.
Don't stand by and watch them suffer. Save your sister and your brother.
Nice. Wonderful.
Inquire, serve, take action. That will grow divine attraction. Respect a guru's time. To waste it is a spiritual crime. Don't stay aloof. Surrender and embrace the truth. For spiritual life to be wrought, strike when the iron is hot.
For spiritual life to be wrought, W-R-O-U-G-H-T, is that what the word was?
Yes.
That's good. That's a blacksmith's term too, wrought. Yeah, good.
Don't stay apart. Worship with all your heart. And disciplic succession is necessary for spiritual progression.
Wow, I'm going to use every one of those. Amazing. Thank you. Send them
Hare
to me,
Krishna.
please. We have a late coming comment from Manasaganga, which I think is a pretty good description of my mood and my approach to the Skeptic Gita study group. Manasaganga says, "Thank you, Prabhu, for a truly powerful class. We need to remember that not everyone is open to hearing about Lord Krishna. Sometimes it's better not to argue." And I think that's why I wouldn't want to participate in the class, because it's like it's set up for argumentation, bringing relative truths, subjective feelings and sentiments to the table. She says, we need to remember that not everyone is open to hear about Lord Krishna. Sometimes it is better not to argue, but to leave them to Lord Paramatma's care and pray for them to have an opportunity when they're ready. Yes. One of the offenses actually against the holy name is to preach to those who are faithless. Of course, we preach out in the public all the time, and amongst them, they're going to be faithless people. But basically, in this sense, I had a sense that someone is declaring their faithlessness to me in advance, which I hear as a message not to go there. Now, some other more intrepid Vaishnavas might want to go where I fear to tread, but that was my own gut reaction to their the way that they are approaching this whole phenomenon. And of course, sometimes if you don't upset people, you don't disrupt them by arguing with them, Krishna from within their heart, you just pray, keep your distance for now, pray for them, don't preach to them, but pray for them. And then you'd be surprised. Krishna from within the heart can bring about changes. And it may be that down the line, at some future point in time, they approach you and say, Prabhuji, I know that when we brought this subject matter up back there in 2022, I wasn't ready. But I feel that since that time, some extraordinary changes have happened within my heart and in my life. So now I would like to re-invite you to participate in our Gita subject group. And we are going to bring not skepticism, but we are going to bring trust and faith to the table. So perhaps rather than jumping into the fray, now might be better just to step back, pray for that person, and wait for Krishna to do his part from within their hearts. So thank you. Good topic, good discussion, good feedback, good takeaways, Rob. Wonderful class, wonderful. As for me, this was a great 45 minutes. I look forward to the third in this series. Actually, I think this is the 11th. Tomorrow will be the 12th time we've revisited this subject matter. Wisdom Wednesday coming up 23 hours from now. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.